Okay then, so should we get started? I think we've got most of the attendees here we need, but we're still waiting for a few, but we'll start anyway. I've got Phil Hearn here, our CEO of MRDC, and Michaelis, CEO of DigitalMR, who's going to be doing the presenting today. I'm going to pass over to Phil very shortly. He's just going to give you a sort of introduction as to how this is going to go, and then Michaelis will carry on and sort of give you the presentation of the social listening tool. So I'll pass you on to Phil.
Well, hello everyone. Welcome to a very wet London today. It's a bit, the weather outside's a bit like I've seen when I've been staying in Kuala Lumpur. It rains about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, so I don't know if it's raining there at the moment, but it's certainly raining here. So this webinar today, we're going to break it into sections. We're going to have, first of all, a 20-minute introduction to social listening, and then a more practical look at how it can be addressed and used. And then there'll be plenty of time between both of those sections to ask questions. And you should find a Q&A chat section where you can ask questions, and I'll be putting your questions to Michaelis. So just as Charlotte made a brief introduction there, Michaelis is going to be our main speaker. He's going to be in the hotspot for most of this session. Just to introduce Michaelis, he's an expert in social listening and has worked in this field for some time, and he's going to be leading this webinar today. I'm going to moderate your questions. Feel free to type those at any time you wish to, and I'll put those to Michaelis at intervals throughout this webinar, and there'll be plenty of time to ask your questions, and you can ask them as you go along, as you think of them, or when there's breaks that we'll have in the webinar. So without further ado, I'm going to pass over to Michaelis to take us through social listening, why, how, and when does it work?
Thank you very much, Phil. In case, I hope everybody can hear as well. If not, please type in your chat box, and maybe someone can help you. As Phil said, feel free to type your questions during this presentation, and then Phil will moderate and facilitate so that we make sure we answer all your questions. I'll start off with okay. One more thing is, in case, I guess, if you can see our webcams, you can move them around, or you can minimize them if you want. All right. And so we'll start off by talking a little bit about what is artificial intelligence and how does it apply in our sector, in market research and customer insights. Then I would like to take you through 6 case studies, very, very short, and each one of them will be making a point about how to apply text analytics, natural language processing, and AI in a way that works for market researchers, because there's a lot of technology out there, but not all of it is suitable for what we do. Then we will show you a drill down dashboard to see how you can drill into the data and analyze it like researchers do. And then finally the Q&A, or maybe we will have maybe we will check with you after the case studies or between sections, see if you have any questions. All right, so so market research is not anymore just about asking questions. It is not anymore just about surveys and focus groups, but now we have a new kid on the block. We call it listening, metaphorically speaking, and it basically means to harvest posts from social media and other public websites. We call it the public web. But that's not where this ends. This technology, text analytics and natural language processing, can be applied to other forms of unstructured text. So the technology that we are presenting to you today is you can use it for any type of unstructured data, text, or images. So some examples would be answers to open-ended questions in surveys, turning call center conversations from audio to text and then using the same technology to analyze those conversations, and any other offline data that you have that is unstructured. I'd like to offer a definition for artificial intelligence because it is indeed a buzzword, and buzzwords tend to have multiple definitions. So this is one I like a lot, and it makes sense to me, and I hope it will make sense to you as well. So artificial intelligence equals ML for machine learning, which is these are the algorithms that we use, plus training data. So for an algorithm to be able to predict something or to annotate a post with sentiment or a topic of conversation, we need to train it to do that. And for that, we need humans to create a training data set. But the good news is that that happens only at the beginning, and then it's a fully automated process. And the third element of artificial intelligence is, thank God for us, human in the loop. And that is, these are a number of different skill sets of humans. One is the curator. So that's somebody who manually annotates posts in order with sentiment and whatever else we want to predict. And that's how we create the training data. And then the data scientist who creates a machine learning model by combining an algorithm with the training data, and then fine-tunes it. So that's what AI is, and this is how we use it in market research. So here are some of the use cases, specific use cases. So we use machine learning and AI to eliminate noise. There's a lot of irrelevant posts on the internet when we are searching for a certain brand. We have this thing called homonyms. A homonym is a word that is spelled the same as a brand you're harvesting for, but it means something else. Yeah, the classic example that everybody uses when they want to make this point is that there is Apple computers and there is Apple the fruit. If you want to create a report for Apple computers, you need to find a way to eliminate the posts about Apple the fruit. Then AI helps us to analyze for topics and conversation drivers. It is important to know what's important for our consumers and customers so that the marketing department of your clients can produce content that makes sense to those consumers. Sentiment analysis. So is the post positive, negative, or neutral towards my brand or my competitors? We can be a little more granular than just positive, negative, and neutral. I'll show you a model that we created for 14 specific emotions. And then finally, that's the latest skill set that we, or the latest technology that has been developed for listening 24/7, which is the name of the tool we are presenting today. Image processing, so not just analyzing text, but also analyzing images. Okay, so let's start with the case studies, the 6 projects or 6 case studies that I mentioned at the beginning, and each one, like I said, will attempt to make 1 or 2 points about how it should be done for market research purposes. So the first one is about sentiment accuracy and about eliminating homonyms or irrelevant posts like Apple the fruit. This was a study that was done in Latin America, in multiple countries. So as already discussed, accuracy is the most important thing for us researchers, and if we don't have that, then it's not worth it to even pay $1 for any data that can be misleading, right? And imagine having a dashboard which is supposedly about Apple, and half of the posts are about the fruit, and you sit there as an Apple computer analyst, and you're misled by the comments around the fruit. And so here is the specific example from this case study. Poker is a beer brand in Colombia, and obviously the brand has a lot of homonyms, right? Poker the game, poker face, and so we take about a week to discover all the homonyms and eliminate them by using Boolean logic and machine learning. If you don't do that, and it so happened that this case study was a face-off between an automated tool, a social media monitoring tool, and the market research approach, which is represented by Listening 24/7. So if we hadn't done the cleanup, the noise elimination that we always do, which takes a week, we would have ended up with 16,000 posts, 16,360 posts about poker. The problem would have been that about 6,000 posts were about poker the game or other uses of the word, but not the beer. And that would have been a real problem, because somebody who is using a dashboard has no way of knowing what is what when they're just looking at data and numbers and percentages. So, and then in the same case study, the automated tool came up with this sentiment analysis. So 39%, according to this tool, 39% of the posts were positive, 4% of the posts were neutral, and 57% of the posts were negative. When we analyzed the data with a customized machine learning model for beer in Spanish, as opposed to a generic language model, which is what automated tools have, we found those differences. So out of the positive posts, we found that 12% were not positive, 9% were neutral, and 3% were negative. Out of the neutral, 80% of the neutral was positive, and 5% was negative. And out of the negative, only 56% of the negative was actually negative. The rest was positive and neutral. And so a third party measured the accuracy of the sentiment accuracy of the automated tool and Listening 24/7, and they came up with these numbers. So the automated tool had a 44% sentiment precision, to be more exact, and Listening 24/7, the MRDC software and DigitalMR tool that is offered, was measured to have 87% sentiment precision. Second project is about telecommunications, and this is making the point that not only sentiment accuracy, but also the semantic accuracy is very important. And by semantic accuracy, we mean the topics. What are the consumers talking about online? So let's start with sentiment. So these are telecom brands, and the net sentiment score is a score that we trademarked, and it basically is a simple formula whereby we add all the positive posts. We take all the positive posts of a brand minus all the negative posts, divided by the sum of all the posts. And here you can see that only one brand, Tico, has a positive net sentiment score of 12.3%, whereas everybody else has a negative net sentiment score. That's the nature of the telecoms business. There's a lot of negativity out there. It's not like that for every product. For example, when we deal with FMCG or luxury products, the negative posts are about 5 to 10% max, whereas in telecoms and other services, it's more like 50%. But if we did not have the kind of accuracy that we need to have, then this chart would have been useless, because we wouldn't know A, if all the posts are about the telecoms brands, and B, we wouldn't know how accurate the sentiment analysis is. Now, the beauty of an approach like this and AI is that it allows us to take a set of millions of posts, big data that we have no way of knowing what they mean and what they tell us, and drill down into specific paths that make sense to us. So if we were the owner of the brand Tico, we could click on Tico, and then we could see all the topics, the top topics that they talk about or that they post about Tico on social media. And these are connectivity with 5,000, and then followed by mobile services, broadband, and so on. We will see more when I show you the dashboard. But the point I want to make here is that if I click on connectivity, then I can drill down to a second hierarchy, which are the subtopics of connectivity. In this case, network quality, reliability, satisfaction, and so on. And then if I click on one of the subtopics, I get a further drill down into attributes of the subtopic that I clicked on. And so in this case, the attributes of network quality and reliability are broadband quality, mobile network quality, tethering, and so on. And these topics, we don't think of them or imagine them the same way we think of questions to include in a survey. This is unsolicited, right? So these topics are informed by the actual posts of the customers. And then a further drill down level is to actually see those posts. Once we have reached to a certain point in our drill down where we think we want to understand more, we can have a look at the actual posts. And here you're looking at two negative ones about Tico in the red frame and two positive ones in the green frame. So it's almost like magic, right? We can go from millions of posts to a quantitative representation of those posts down to a qualitative type of analysis, being able to look at the verbatims of these people. I like this one. My first smartphone, those were the times. So he's combining a camera with a a feature phone, or not a smartphone, but I thought that was funny. Okay, the third project is about demonstrating that this approach is language agnostic, and it doesn't matter what language it is that we are analyzing. The sentiment accuracy and the semantic accuracy is the same. So in this project, we looked at a product for dentures, an adhesive, and the countries included were Brazil and the language Portuguese, English for the US, German, Italian, Russian, and Japanese. As you can see, the sentiment accuracy, which was measured by us and the client, ranged between 76% to 91%, which is not that often that we can go over 90% because of ambiguity, and we can't expect an algorithm to agree with every human's opinion about sarcasm and ambiguity. And so, but please consider that these accuracies were achieved the first time. This was the first time we ever did anything in Japanese, and the sentiment accuracy was 76%, first time. So if we wanted to increase the 76% to say 80%, we could have curated a few more posts for sentiment, so train the algorithm a bit more, and we would be able to get to a higher level. The sources from where we harvested in this case were blogs, and here you can see the differences between countries. Forums, boards or forums, Twitter, who seems to be the dominating source in Germany, Italy, Brazil, Russia, but not in Japan or the US in this case. And then videos, which is YouTube. We also can include Facebook and Instagram, but these have some limitations. We can only show the public posts from Facebook and Instagram specific accounts. Let me say one thing about harvesting. For us, harvesting from the internet is a commodity these days. Anybody can harvest anything. So this is not where we differentiate listening 24/7 from the other tools. It is all about sentiment and semantic accuracy for us. So if there is a public website, if a website is public, then we can harvest from it. I have a dog next to me, as you can hear. Apologies for that. All right, and just to show you an insight, how we can extract, derive insights from this data. One of the insights from this study was that the 6 markets had different degrees of maturity when it came to older people using dentures, so false teeth, and there were a lot of jokes and insults and negative perceptions, and this is how the countries ranked. So the most mature markets, which did fewer jokes and insults, were the US, followed by Japan, followed by Germany, and the worst was Brazil, where we found the most jokes and insults for older people who were were using dentures. Project number 4 is to show that not only we can detect the basic sentiment being positive, negative, and neutral, but also we can look at 14 specific emotions which are grouped into positive emotions and negative emotions, and we have 7 pairs of opposite emotions like joy and sadness, love and hate, trust and mistrust, and so on. This is useful when it comes to campaign evaluation. One of the uses of knowing the granularity of the sentiment is to be able to tell which emotion drives a campaign. So as you can see here, this campaign up here was mainly driven by love, maybe love towards the brand or love towards an actor or an animal in this ad. But you can also learn what emotions not to evoke, the ones that do not help towards virality, and sometimes, as we have seen in the press, Pepsi or other big brands get it wrong, and they need to understand what exactly it was that created a negative sentiment for their campaign. Finally, and we will take a break after this to see if there are any questions before we go into the demonstration of the dashboard. I have combined 2 projects, one for telecoms and one for health and wellness, and we call these the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail in our industry is to be able to integrate survey data with social listening data, and if possible with behavioral data, sales data, or whatever else is out there. And so we've done exactly that. This is from a case study where we combined the Net Promoter Score tracker with social listening, and you're looking at the red line being the monthly Net Promoter Score for a specific brand, and the purple line is the monthly net sentiment score for the same brand. And as you can see, well, they're both in the negative, but the net sentiment score is way more negative than the one that comes from the survey. For those of you who are not familiar with the Net Promoter Score, it's a recommendation question in a survey. It has a scale from 0 to 10, and the question is, to what extent would you recommend this brand? And if somebody gives it, scores it with a 9 and 10, they are a promoter. 0 to 6, they are called a detractor, and 7 and 8, neutral, or polite negatives, as we call them. And so it's very similar to the net sentiment score. I remind you, it's positive posts minus negative posts on the internet divided by the sum. The interesting thing about this graph here is that the green line is the weekly net sentiment score. And there is no limitation in how granular we can be with social media posts. We can show daily data or hourly data or minute by minute if we want. But what this spike here is telling us, and you will have noticed that there is some correlation between the monthly lines, the purple and the red. So up from September to October, down from October to November. But the spike here, which is the weekly net sentiment score, is an early indicator for the net promoter score, which will be shown to the client 2 weeks later. So there is some use to that. And then we also did a study with Nielsen in the Middle East, where we tried to find correlation between retail sales data, which come from the Nielsen reports, and social listening data, mainly positive and negative sentiment. So we were very pleased to discover that the R-square correlation factor was 81%, and also the beta coefficient for positive sentiment was double as high as for negative sentiment, which basically tells us that in this part of the world, in the Gulf, in the Arabian Gulf, the positive sentiment is a much stronger driver of sales than negative sentiment, which was a bit of a surprise. All right, so and then I guess the one last thing was that we can now analyze images. I don't have a case study for that yet. It's brand new, but what we can do is we can load the system with thousands or millions of images from Twitter or Facebook, and the tool can give us a theme in text, a caption like this, a group of people standing around each other in a restaurant, which is not very accurate in this case. But it is, deep learning is a way of machine learning, and after a lot of training, when we realized that the model does not recognize beer glasses, but it did recognize the food here, that's why it called it a restaurant. We trained it a little more with some more beer images, and that's how this is done. So that's how AI works. You can improve, and now we are able to analyze all these images and put them in a taxonomy along with the topics that are posted using text. We can also see what kind of occasions people are sharing when they talk about beer or other products. All right, and this is basically the list that I went through by showing to you those case studies. Is the list of these 7 differentiators of listening 24/7, and about 1,000 social media monitoring tools that are out there. So I'll pause here and see if Phil has any questions from you.
Well, several questions. I hope you're ready. Thanks for that, Michaelis. We've got about 5 or 6 questions, so I'll work through those with you, hopefully in some logical order. A fairly quick one, first of all. How can we define no emotions, or how do you address no emotions?
Okay.
That's from Harry.
Okay, so no emotions is the same as neutral sentiment. When we do sentiment analysis, we call it neutral. And it's a good question, actually, because there is a little bit of a discussion between end clients and research agencies. And here's an example. If somebody says, I love Starbucks, it's clear, right? Positive emotion. I hate Starbucks, it's clear, negative emotion. If somebody says, I had a coffee at Starbucks, what is this? And so if nobody gives us any specific instruction, we will call this a neutral post or no emotion, right? I am at Starbucks, no emotion. However, there is a school that says, well, you are at Starbucks, you are not at Costa or Nero, which are other coffee chains. This indicates brand preference, so I want you to consider this as positive sentiment. And that we can do. So, so if your client says, if somebody mentions my brand, even if there is no emotion, I want it to be called positive and not neutral, we do that. And so, yeah, so the basic approach, if there is no clear sentiment, it's neutral or no emotion. But still useful because
Indeed.
there is a topic mentioned.
Okay, I hope that answers that question. There's two questions in one here. I hope you can cope with two in one. The question is, does the tool only analyze unstructured data that is inputted into it, or does it also collect the data? So perhaps some background onto getting the data would be interesting. And the sub part of that question, how does it balance the mix of sources for social content to ensure a representative data set?
Okay, so the answer to the first question is yes. The tool also harvests from any public source, and like I said, I'll name a few again. So there is Twitter, there is blogs, forums, YouTube, review sites like TripAdvisor, Amazon, e-commerce sites, and when it comes to Facebook and Instagram, we can only harvest the public posts, so not your private conversations, only the fan pages and the groups and so on. About representativity, this is not an issue here because we are not dealing with a sample. We harvest everything. So we call this census data. We harvest the universe of all the posts. Anything that is out there that carries the keywords Coca-Cola, Pepsi-Cola, whatever, if we're doing CSDs, it will be harvested. So this is not about sample. And if I'm not answering the question, please, drill down with this question. But there is no sampling. We harvest everything.
Okay. Another question coming in here. What algorithm is used for topic detection? Does this work as well on non-English texts?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So for topic and semantic analysis, as we call it, we use a hierarchical taxonomy. This point here, and we reach over 80% semantic accuracy by using this taxonomy. The taxonomy. So there is a use of a machine learning algorithm in creating the taxonomy, but once it's created, it is the taxonomy that helps us analyze for topics. So all the posts are pushed through this taxonomy and they get annotated for topics, subtopics, and attributes, or even more hierarchies if there are any. And so that's how this is done. And this is why, and maybe I need to reiterate here, that one other major difference of the market research approach, which is what we represent here, is that it takes 2 to 3 weeks to set up a new product category in a new language. It's not at a press of a button. If you use a tool which provides data for a product category in a language at a press of a button without any setup, then chances are that the data will be very, very noisy, so irrelevant almost, and it can be up to 80 to 90% of it could be noise because of Apple the fruit, remember? And the sentiment accuracy will definitely be lower than 60%, and there will be no topic analytics if you're looking at an automated tool. I hope I'm answering the question.
If you've got these sub questions or follow-up questions, please feel free to add another question to the Q&A. Another question, if I can praise it here, how did you deal with cultural differences and the use of humour, and how do you normalise that for fair comparisons?
Yeah. Remember the definition of AI? It was machine learning plus training data. The training data is created by humans that are native language speakers, right? So say we're doing something in Vietnamese, which we are currently. We're doing tea in Vietnamese. The training data is going to be created, is being created by 4 curators who are individuals with good common sense and judgment, who are going through a few thousands of posts, and if they see something that is positive, they annotate it as positive. If it's negative, negative. And if they detect humor, the same way you would detect it in your own language, they will flag it for us as ambiguous or sarcastic, and then they will enter a sentiment. So if somebody says this game is sick, the younger among us know that this is a very positive statement, and so somebody may take this phrase and say, okay, this could be ambiguous because not everybody know that millennials use sick as a positive word, and they would say it is positive. So humor or sarcasm is handled at the training data stage, and so once the humans annotate a post as sarcastic or ambiguous, the algorithm will learn the same thing, because the brain of the machine is created by this training data, by these thousands of posts that are produced, are annotated by humans who are native in the language we're analyzing the data for.
Okay, you can relax. There's only another 25 questions to go. I'm joking. The next question is 3 more, actually. Are there any limits to the harvest in terms of count? That's from Simon.
No, but there is a cost implication when it comes to Twitter. Twitter, yeah, they have a monopoly. It's just Twitter, with the exception of China, where we have Weibo instead of Twitter. But for Twitter, we have to pay quite a lot of money to have access to the fire hose. Fire hose means fire hose as opposed to garden hose. Garden hose is free, but it only gives you 10% of the data or less. The fire hose, for which we pay for, gives you access to the beginning of time, which is 2006 for Twitter, and anything that is out there. And so if we go over 1 million posts for any given project, we have to charge, it's a negligible amount in the grand scheme of things, about $200 per additional 1 million of posts. So there is no limitation to how many posts we can analyze. We can analyze 1 billion posts, if you like, in a matter of hours with the infrastructure that we have, distributed processing. But there is an incremental cost, which I would say, like the example of tea in Vietnam. For 12 months, we harvested maybe 500,000 posts. So we're not in Asia. I don't think we will be surpassing the 1 million very often.
Okay, another question here. Does this technique work equally well on tracking continuous studies as well as on one-off or ad hoc projects that you might have?
Yes. So we find that the best way to start a relationship with a client, if most of the, I understand that most of the people on this call are work with market research agencies, and so you service end clients. If that's the case, the most popular way to enter in this social media listening realm is to do an ad hoc project first with some historical data, maybe 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months historical data on a brand and its competitors. Then you present the PowerPoint to them so that they can understand what kind of data can be presented, and how you can analyze and how you can link the insights to the surveys that they are used to. And but after that, our intention and your intention should be to provide an ongoing social listening reporting. And the most popular cycle at the moment with clients, market research clients, is monthly. So they can subscribe to your service for a year, and you can deliver monthly reports, whether to the dashboard, which I will show you now, or you could be receiving from MRDC Software a CSV file or Excel tables, which is one of the most inexpensive ways to get data to you. And then you can create PowerPoints the same way you're used to creating PowerPoints now.
Okay, we've got 2 or 3 more questions that have come in while you've been speaking. I'll put 2 of them together here. One that asks whether you can localize where posts are being harvested from by country, I assume that means, and how you deal with dialects in particular countries.
Yeah. Okay, good question. Yeah, you remember I mentioned Weibo earlier, which is the equivalent, I think, of Twitter in China. So yes, as long as it's public, wherever it is, even if it's not currently in the sources that we have, if it's important to you, your client, your country, we can include it. The only condition is that it's public data, and nobody will go after us if we harvest it, right? We don't want to be doing anything illegal. Sorry, what was the second part of the question, Phil?
Local dialects.
Yes.
Do you deal with?
Yeah. Yes. Remember I said this is a language agnostic approach. We just need 2 weeks to set up any language. But you know what's interesting, which we were not aware of this when we started this business in 2012. There are those languages that are, for example, in Arabic, there are people who type in using Latin characters, but Arabic. And so we call this Arabish. So it's the combination of Arabic and English. So English characters, but Arabic words. And so that, even though this language doesn't exist as such, if we wanted to harvest Arabish and analyze it, we can, but we need to treat it as a separate language. We need to train a machine learning algorithm to understand Arabish, and we need to create a taxonomy in Arabish. So it's possible to do it. For maybe that wasn't your question, but you're giving me the opportunity to say about this kind of dialect, if you like, which we find online. Okay, couple more questions, then we'll let you carry on. I've got one from Simon that asks whether you can get the counts for the number of where the posts are coming from. I guess you'll cover that in the dashboard in a minute, so maybe we'll hold that one for now. Yeah. Another question about types of clients. Does it only work in certain segments, or does it work across all product fields? As long as there are thousands of posts about your subject, it makes sense to use this technology. We have done projects from FMCG to banking, telecom, automotive, healthcare, intelligence, for intelligence agencies, for governments and political parties who are interested in the sentiment towards a candidate for a post. My answer is it works with anything as long as there are sufficient posts out there. And okay. By the way, you can ask MRDC Software for a free. There is a report that we call brand presence, which we offer for free. So if you're not sure if there are enough posts in your language for a specific subject, you can give to Charlotte or Phil for up to 5 brands in a product category. define the language, and then we will tell you how many there are out there, in which sources. In 2 or 3 days, you will have a PDF in your inbox.
Okay, I think we've got a couple more questions. So I keep saying there's a couple more questions left, but we'll call a halt to it, I think, now, so that you can get on after these 2 questions. Is there a capability for segmenting the results by user types or some other categorization?
Excellent question. That's a tough one for social listening, and I'll explain why. We depend on whatever the authors of the posts include in their profiles, right? In the first instance. There is another way, I'll explain it later. So let me give you an indication. About 30 to 40% of all the posts carry the location information in the metadata. So we don't know. So if you want us to do something in English about Coca-Cola, which is a global brand, we will harvest it from all over the place, and then we will only know the location for 40% of those posts. If we just depend on the metadata, as we call it, what's in the profile of a person. We can also find the gender of a person in 20 to 30% of the posts, but that's about it. No age, no income, no education, none of the things you're used to. But there is a way to do it. The way is to create customized machine learning models for a language and a demographic. So if you want to know the age of people in who post in Malay, we can take a couple of weeks and train, and by looking at posts, we can tell if somebody is in a specific age group. We cannot tell exactly the age, but we could say, for example, we did it for alcoholic beverage companies. With a 90% accuracy, we were able to tell them if a person was younger than 21 or older than 21, because alcoholic beverage companies don't even want to see posts from people who are under the legal drinking age. And so that's possible to do, but it takes some setup and customization, and each model has a setup cost. So that may be, but there's another way to answer this question very quickly, is that segmentation is needed when you use surveys who are based on a sample that represents the universe. In this business, we're not looking at samples. We know what each and every one who posted, what they say, and we can reach out to them actually on the platform where they posted it. So here you can do a person-to-person marketing, and one may argue that segmentation is not needed anymore if you can access each person individually. It's debatable, but that's another way to answer the question.
Okay, we'll fit in one more quick question. There are a few more that are still coming through, but I'm conscious of the time going by here. That is, can you combine other texts that you might have from other sources into the model where you're collecting data from social listening?
Yes.
So I guess you're talking about open-ended text or other texts that companies might collect.
Yes. Like I said at the beginning, the technology that we use for text analytics and natural language processing is source agnostic. So it doesn't care if the text comes from Facebook, social media, open-ended answers, or even a book. You know, take a book and throw an algorithm at it, and it will analyze it for you if you train it well. So yeah, the technology is applicable for any type of text. And just to make a point that I'm not sure if it was part of the question, we are open to receive your data, even if you have a social media monitoring tool, or if your client says, you know, my digital marketing department already subscribes to something. Well, we're not going to insist to harvest the same posts again if they have access to posts. we are happy to take those posts or any other unstructured data that they have, and we will analyze it for you accurately, the way it should be done when you do market research, and present it to you in a dashboard like this.
All right, I think we should move on now to looking at the dashboard as time's running down. So do you want to carry on onto that, Michaelis? And any other questions we'll deal with offline afterwards, or if we have got time at the end, but quickly, a couple more questions, we'll do that.
Okay, so let me say, I said that data harvesting is a commodity, and we differentiate ourselves in analyzing accurately. I will also say that data visualization is also a commodity. So I'm showing to you a dashboard now, but you know, this could be, the dashboard can be customized in any way you like. So this is just, I'll show you two types of dashboards, the drill down dashboard and the query dashboard, in the next 3 or 4 minutes. So here you have some beer brands, Heineken, 34,000 posts, Miller Lite, 26,000, and so on. Here you have the trend from January 2015 to December 2015, so 12 months of data. The sources are Twitter, 51% of all the data came from Twitter, forums or boards, news, which is the only one that is not consumer data, and it's a choice. Some clients want to see editorial stuff because they want to measure their public relations performance, and some don't. They only want to see consumer posts. Blogs and Facebook. Facebook, again, it's so small, the number, because it doesn't include everything, just the fan pages of these brands up here. Then you have the topics that are the top topics of conversation around beer, around these brands specifically. Closeness, followed by beer itself, the product, brand impact marketing, perceived brand value, authority, and so on. You see, some of these topics, they can be chosen to align with the survey trackers that your clients have. For example, authority or perceived brand value may be a section in the questionnaire, and we are creating a topic in the taxonomy so that we can compare the two. Here you have the sentiment, and then you can see the individual posts. So very quickly, I can show you how you drill down into a certain path and go to see some posts. So click on Heineken, and then I'm seeing that October 15 has a peak, so I'm going to click on October 15. So now it drills down into these 3,996 posts. Now I can see how these posts are distributed in the sources. The immediate thing that I observe is that news has more posts in October than Twitter, so it is something that happened in the news that drove the number of posts about Heineken. Then I can click on one of the topics, the top topic, and so closeness is broken down into occasions, connection, and preference. If I click on occasions, it further drills down into occasions by time, 651 posts, excuse me, occasions where people were watching football or some other sport while drinking beer, type of occasion, season, and so on. And then if I click here to see posts, I can then go from the quantitative analytics to the qualitative type of analysis, which is the actual posts on a list. And in this case, we will see the top 5 and bottom 5 posts based on how many times they were shared by consumers, by people. Takes a few seconds until it loads. And I can change the number. So here you see top 5, bottom 5. Bottom 5 because nobody shared anything, right? So these are posts, and I could change the number from 5 to 100 if I want to, and see, or 1,000, depending on how many posts I had in the previous page. And then I can click on one of these posts, and then I'm taken to wherever the post was found, and I can read what it is about. And then I can comment on it, or if it's a consumer, I can I can respond to this person and have a conversation. Very quickly, one more type of dashboard. This is the query dashboard. I have some dimensions here, like the brand, the topic, the source type, the sentiment, the emotion. Let's click on brand. And in terms of measure net sentiment score, there you go. So remember when we were looking at this PowerPoint earlier, here is a similar thing. One of the brands, well, it's the opposite here. Only one of the brands has a negative net sentiment score, Bud Light, Budweiser Light. Everybody else has a positive net sentiment score. Remember, in the telecoms example, everybody had a negative net sentiment score and only one had a positive net sentiment score. Now, take a look at this. There's another view here, the secondary view. And if I click on topic and then click on one of the brands, I can now see a visual representation with color coding of Heineken net sentiment score by topic and by month. And with one glance, I can see, let me bring this a bit further down. I can see that you see the positive net sentiment score is blue, and negative is beige or to orange. And so with one glance, I can see where my problems are as Heineken. So company performance in December had a negative net sentiment score, and brand appreciation in February, for example. There's a few more things that you can do, but time is up, I think, and I will pass it back on to Phil. Phil?
Yeah, I'm coming back. Sorry, I managed to leave myself muted. Okay, I think we've just got one or two more questions, and then we'll wrap up, I think. Is it possible to get data from non-text videos, graphics, or MEMS images? I know you covered that briefly at the beginning.
Yes, it is possible to look at images and analyze them for theme. Video, we haven't developed anything yet, but we have the intellectual property to do that, because video is frames, or so that it's multiple images, and the audio can be turned into text. So voice to text software has become more accurate these days. So we can take this text and use the same technology to analyze it.
Okay, and the final question, one I missed earlier, actually, and apologies for that one being posted earlier. Can you identify and separate brand promoted content from consumer voice?
Sorry, say that again. I didn't catch that.
Does the tool have the ability to identify and separate brand promoted content from the consumer voice?
Oh, yes. So we call them corporate posts, and yes, so we differentiate between corporate posts and consumer posts. We know the handles that the brands are using, so yes, we can differentiate.
Okay, I think that's all. I think everyone's questions. Thank you for all the questions we got. Got a lot of interesting questions there. I think we've managed to get through all of those. I think we'll stop there. We're 1 minute overrunning here. What will happen from here is that you're obviously get a follow-up email, and if you've got any questions that you want to ask subsequent to this webinar, or you want to ask something privately, which of course is quite likely as well, there'll be an email contact address for Charlotte, who will take your questions or your inquiries so that the right person can deal with those and get back to you. But I'd just like to thank everybody for attending today. I hope it's been of interest to you. I think the questions have been really interesting questions, and I think it just shows that there's a lot of interest in this fast-growing area. So I'm going to thank Michaelis for helping out today and really putting together some meat on the bones, as it were, and showing us what is possible and what is good practice in this business. And as I say, you'll be getting an email after this session, and feel free to ask us more questions or specific inquiries that are important to you. But thank you all for attending, and I hope to hear from you all soon. And thank you. Goodbye from everyone.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.